All right. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Justin Sider. I'm the CIO of Belay Technologies. Today I'm going to talk about an open source project. It's called XesterUI. The X is silent. I can explain the X in a little while. This is basically right now a user interface for vSphere. Brian Bunk had a nice conversation about this yesterday. It is a tool for configuration management on your vSphere environment. So let's get started. Do not buy anything based on my talk today. I'm not actually selling anything. It's an open source product, but we were informed we have to show this beautiful slide. All right, so here's the problem that I have in my environment. I work on a team of about 11 people, and we're all responsible for the administration of our environment. So I need to know how I can quickly and easily detect configuration drift as a team to know whether or not I'm going to have problems in my environment. So vSphere is a great tool. vSphere is a command line utility, which means only one person can run that at a specific time. And sharing that, I would have to email or share an XML file. So from a team aspect, it's not super friendly. So I believe I have a pretty good solution moving forward. Some options we have available today as far as managing this and potentially deploying consistency across. You have host profiles, VRA. I could probably go through more. Ansible, Chef, they all have ways to configure these things. Detection is sometimes going to be problematic. Command line based, we have vSphere, we have vCheck. vCheck has been a great tool out there for a while. That's going to email you a report. So some concerns you might have, looking on the pieces on your left, you're going to have additional costs somewhere. You have to kind of gauge the cost of labor versus the cost of a licensed product. And then you have technical debt, right? If someone who sets something up leaves, what do you do? You have to hope that the tool is documented and that knowledge is transferred. So my personal thoughts are everything open source is on a rise, right? Everyone wants to use open source tools to the best of their ability. And I always prefer to invest in my people versus investing in more licensing. It's going to set them better up for career growth. And I always want to select solutions that are going to be used, right? So if I, as the leader of the team, want to go out and purchase a license, I don't want to purchase a license for a tool that the 10 other people hate. So there's a little bit of give and take between the organizational goals and my preference and the team's preference. All right, so we'll get into the solution a little bit. If anyone's around and wants a demo afterwards, we can pop out to a table. I can show you live what it looks like to move around a little bit. So it's a componentized product. So we have vSphere, which is part of the execution piece. We have a user interface. Now the product's built on WAMP, so you're going to get Windows, Apache, MySQL, PHP. There's no reason it can't be put on the LAMP stack, so long as your Linux VM that's housed in the web has access to the log files. That's the only requirement, so that you can actually view those in the web. And then everything else is PowerShell. So should be pretty comfortable stuff to work with from an administrative standpoint. The user interface is pretty simple. You have search and filtering available, so you can sort things all day long. And you can quickly drill down from a system to infrastructure items. And everything's color-coded. All the colors are configurable through the back-end database. It's just some couple rows of data. Back to the easy to use. Adding a target, you can see on the right-hand side, you're going to enter a target name. You're going to select what type of item it is. One thing to note, and I'll get to this in a few seconds, you don't actually have to enter the targets into the system. So once a vSphere test runs, the only requirement is going to be a vCenter. Once the vCenter is entered and you run a test, it'll actually populate all the targets into the database for you. And then it'll use those for every subsequent run. So that's kind of a nice little feature. Submitting a test run's easy too. You really, on the right-hand side, you're going to enter a test name and hit the button to submit the run. And right now that run is as a system. And a system would include a vCenter and anything in that vCenter. Oh, that's awesome. Pros and cons. So, free and open source projects, it's great. Projects are only as good as the community that are driving them. And you can fork it. You can take that code and you can make it your own. You can contribute back. But seeing that code from an open source standpoint is great. The negatives, versioning's a problem, right? So, this one in particular, I'm completely wrapping vSphere. I don't actually hook into vSphere at all. I don't request any changes made to vSphere. So if vSphere changes, I have to change to make sure that my project is still working. And I don't want to put anything on the vSphere folks to make sure that we're compatible. That's my job, not their job. And then, just open source in general, you might be waiting a long time for a bug fix to be completed if you don't have the skill set to submit that PR. So my suggestion is if you're going to use open source projects, make sure you select them in a language that you can understand, that you can fix little bugs maybe in your environment. It'll be super helpful, long term. All right, so the example I use, I have a little Nook at home, and I was gonna, wanted to make sure that I could verify the configuration of that little environment. So pretty basic setup. I've got the Nook, I've got some storage on NFS, a couple VMs. So you'll see how quickly and easily you can set this thing up. All right, I use my home lab. All right, so a couple dependencies, and this is more for the WAMP stack. You have the Visual C++ redistributable WAMP server. You can get the latest edition. That makes no difference for us. I require PowerShell 5, the latest PowerCLI 6.5, Pester, PowerWAMP and PowerLumber are modules that I'm providing you. They're in the PowerShell gallery. It's just to interact with MySQL and WAMP. You can shut things down, make queries. PowerLumber is just a standard logging module that I'm using, just so that I don't have to worry about changing how I'm logging information. And then, of course, vSphere. It actually supports 1.2. I haven't updated the slides because 1.2 came out late last week. Thanks, Brian. So just pull down the repository, deploy WAMP. You're just going to copy the web files into the web directory, and I include a batch script which will deploy the database for you. And you get a choice of whether to input sample data or you just don't put any sample data in for yourself. And then to actually run a test, the only thing you need to do is have a config.json, and if you're familiar with vSphere, you should already know how to do that. And then add a vCenter username and password so that we can actually connect. So the only piece that is non-UI to get you started is to create that config.json, that first one. So open up a PowerShell window, type new vSphere config once you're connected to your vCenter, and follow the prompts. And then it drops it in the default location. Again, change that to 1.2 or whichever version of vSphere you're running. All right, adding a system. There's a button for it. I didn't show the context menus on the left-hand side, so I apologize for that. On my blog, you can see the full web. So you would enter a name, you'd enter a full path. You have to escape the backslashes because that's a PHP thing. It doesn't affect PowerShell or anything like that. And then hit the create button. It'll generate it. And then the next thing is adding vCenter. So here's the add target menu. You're going to enter the IP address, select the vCenter option, select the username. So I have a table that stores username and password. So I'll actually pre-populate a list where you just select the username that you want to use. So I'm not going to display the password in the UI. And then once you create the target, you'll see it show up at the bottom. So on the context menu on the left-hand side, you can hit Systems. When you see System, you'll then be able to see which system we're talking about and be able to submit a test run. All right. So as I said before, we have the idea of components. So there's a queue manager and there's a test run manager. So from a system-wide perspective, you only need a single queue manager. He's gonna monitor any test that's been submitted to basically assign that out to a test run manager. The test run managers, you can have 1 through N. So if you have 15 data centers across the world, you can put 1 in each, and that way you're only sending back the traffic to populate the database. You're not actually logging in from a central point, running these tests remotely. So it should provide you a much faster response time on getting the test information into the database. All right, starting a test run, you have the option to remediate, just like vSphere. It's just a checkbox. Be aware that if you check that box, you will alter your environment, right? So it's not a what if, this is a, you check the box, it will remediate anything it finds. Viewing the results, so I have the context for which vSphere has in the XML file, which is test suite, test case. So on the right-hand side, you'll be able to view the test run, test suites, And then you'll also be able to view all of the test cases. So you get the option of whether you want a smaller view, and then once you're in that view, you can click on the test cases to see the test cases that are only to that test suite. So visually, it's hard to kind of explain that, but when looking at the XML that you get back from VSphere, it'll make more sense. You'll see whether it passes or fails. There's also a critical option. Critical would be that VSphere ran and said it had 78 tests, and we only got back 77 results. So it'll have you kind of take a little bit closer look at the log file. You can also view the log file. It'll open up a web page with all the text from the log file, and it'll also do the XML results in raw form in the UI as well. Remediation, I've talked about this. So this is down to the test case level. You'll see this one shows up and flags it as red. And then if you click on the view stack trace, you'll actually see why the test failed. And again, you have the option to remediate. Remediate at this time will actually go and run the entire test again. There's not a notion of running that test against a single infrastructure item. So I'll talk about roadmap and things to come. And that's going to happen now. So left-hand side, I have internal to XesterUI. So it's going to be importing systems and tests, right? I just want to connect to a vCenter and go out and get everything, right? And then go out and get the tests. So again, tests are populated the same way that new hosts or new configuration items are. So it would be nice to go ahead and pre-populate that, and that way you could actually select what items you want and then build the config.json on the fly. Right, so you decide what you want as you're selecting the test. In addition, it would be being able to submit a test for just a host or just a VM, and that way you don't have to worry about the time it takes to run through all the other tests of a vCenter or of a system. One thing I worked on at the hackathon this week was to abstract the idea of just a single vCenter for a vSphere test. And what I want to do is, and what I was able to do is assign multiple vCenters to a single system and basically loop through all the vCenters and aggregate those into one test result. So that way you're not viewing multiple pieces of XML for multiple results. I'm just going to give you a full list of everything that happened. I don't know if I touched on it here. When viewing results, you also have the option to view the history for an infrastructure item. So if you have a VM, you can go back and see what did yesterday's run look like, what did the day before that, what did the day before that. So you can get the full history and not have to look at multiple files to try and build that yourself. Let's see, what else? So let's talk about external to XesterUI. So right now I've been talking a lot about vSphere, but really that's just a piece of the capability, right? So XesterUI is just a framework, right? So whether it be a DSC test or whether it be vSphere, or whether it be some of the V documentation guys that have written some stuff, the whole goal is to be able to provide you a framework that you can add your tests, add your configurations to, and be able to view them in a common way and share that amongst your team, right? Anybody can hit a web page. So that's really the goal of the project, and I'm currently accepting feature requests. Any contributions you guys want to add, that'll be great. The middle link there is where you can check it out and get it. You can follow my blog. There's going to be examples there. And then Chester is the beginnings of that second piece I was talking about, where it's going to be more than just your vSphere environment. So give that a check. Thank you all for listening. Thank the guys in the back in VMworld for having us. It's been an awesome experience.